Good afternoon. We are meeting at a remote today and will talk about the same remote. How are we doing with remote working?
Kaip mums sekasi dirbti nuotoliu, kokie yra
What are the attitudes?
nuostatos,
What does our
kiek
manager think when we work remotely?
mūsų vadovas, kuomet mes dirbame nuotoliu.
And does it bring us more
Tai
benefits,
duoda
or
daugiau
does it create
naudos,
more stress and pressure?
sukuria daugiau streso ir įtampos. Tai
For many years it has been argued that it may not be necessary for all workers to spend absolutely all of their working time in the work environment.
darbo laiką leisti darbo aplinkoje.
Perhaps it is possible to work at a remote, over a distance.
Per atstumą, per nuotolį.
In many cases, company managers used to think that if you work remotely, you don't work at all.
Manydavo, jog jeigu tu dirbi per nuotolį, tai reiškia, tu išvis nedirbi.
However, 2020 has arrived and in that year, as we say, the genie was let out of the bottle.
Kaip mes sakome, buvo išleistas džinas iš butelio.
This is where COVID-19 came in. Many people have gone teleworking, working from home,
Išėjo dirbti nuotoliu, išėjo dirbti į namus.
to have less
Tarsi
social
daugiau
contact.
socialinio kontakto.
Nowadays, it is probably fair to say that the genie is out and it has become very difficult to put it back in. Many companies have invited employees back to their workplaces, and in the meantime employees have started to ask this question. Is it really more efficient, more useful, more beneficial to work from the workplace all the time? These are some of the aspects, some of the reflections. Of course, you can't put it all together and say that this is the only thing that works or that is the only thing that doesn't work. Hybrid work cannot be said to be work from work and work from home. That it is potentially more stressful or, let's say, less definitive. A few things. People are different and different people need different working conditions. Some people are very happy to work from their work environment, i.e. the office. Others, meanwhile, say I would be much more comfortable planning my time on my own. So, maybe we'll talk less about the working environment in the office. What happens when people work from home? During the quarantine period, we had a lot of jokes about how when people work from home, sometimes they didn't even get out of their beds. They socialize in their home environment, they have pets, they take care of their children, and they don't have to send their children to school and nursery. And if your social life takes over, you should naturally realize that you have less time and less attention for work. And possibly the working environment or work, it actually becomes less effective. A few things to look out for when we are working from home, working in a hybrid way. Today there is talk that hybrid working is probably the most effective format to adapt to the newly changed conditions and our newly changed attitudes. When we work from home, we don't always tend to have a very clear schedule of those 8 hours. That is, 8 to 5 as standard, but the question is always, is that really the right amount? Here are some simple rules to adopt. The first thing I have already mentioned is that working from home is by no means family care, cooking, looking after the animals and so on. Right?
gyvūnų priežiūra ir panašiai. Ar ne? Tai reiškia,
This means that I should first decide what I plan to do during the day, what I will do and at what hours.
dienos metu, kokius darbus ir kokiamis valandomis aš dirbu.
It applies even when we're working in the office. It has long been said that 8 to 5 is not the most important time. For some it is more convenient to work from 7 a.m. or even 6 a.m., and for others it is more convenient to work until 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. I strongly believe this is not an issue. As long as we agree on a time to be at our workplace, remotely, and can hold virtual meetings. Next, working from home must come with certain conditions. If we don't have suitable working conditions at home, most of the issues we could be discussing or debating should be set aside, acknowledging that working from home is simply not feasible.
Mes turėtumėm juos visus uždaryti ir sakyti, kad nėra sąlygų dirbti iš namų.
In that case, we work from the office. If we want to work from home, we must create conditions that are the same as, or at least comparable to, those we have at the office. We should focus closely on the interference graph, ensuring that individuals in our social environment disrupt us as little as possible. Another issue emerges when, despite having coordinated working hours that allow all employees to join remotely, workers feel stressed due to the loss of certain work rules or habits, particularly the continuous interpersonal contact. To avoid this issue, we should focus on using a simple tool, like Messenger, or another similar option, at the very least. When we could connect not only on labor issues, but also on social issues. Well, as an example, in the office setting, we have at least 2 coffee breaks, which allow us to take a short rest. We also have a lunch break. But it's no secret that during that time, we often spend part or all of it socializing. When our work situation changes and we start working from home, we automatically sacrifice socialization time. And it can lead to discomfort or tension for some people. That being said, connecting with colleagues remotely should involve not just work-related matters, but also social interactions. We should have the space to talk about how we're doing, how we're feeling, how remote work is progressing, whether we miss our coworkers, and if we miss the office atmosphere, and so on. In this way, we should build our virtual company or virtual team. It's a virtual team where people interact with each other not just on work-related matters, but also on personal and social topics. Another challenge, which can be quite difficult, is managing your time when you're at home. There are just so many distractions. A wide variety of distractions. As I said, household chores, TV, fridge, stove. It's very easy to get distracted by something, and once that happens, it can be hard to quickly return to a productive working mindset. I firmly believe that a person doesn't always work a full 8 hours in a traditional office setting. This is likely true in the case of working from home as well. Despite all this, there is a need for discipline. At work, there are perhaps more natural pressures from the environment, from colleagues, and from managers. We often feel that when we enter the workplace, we're able to gain some momentum. At home, it's more complicated, which is why it's important to focus on planning your productivity. This involves organizing your tasks and tracking your efficiency. Planning may come naturally in an office setting, but it becomes much more complex in a home environment. Wouldn't you agree? This is why we need to pay particular attention to planning activities at home. That means we plan for a week as a minimum. And we definitely plan the day. In other words, it's about the work I need to accomplish within a set number of hours, right? And then pushing myself to get it done. Looks like everything is on track. We've set up a productive work environment, reduced social distractions, developed a solid plan, and are following it. But in many cases we don't feel well for another reason. And what's happening in the company during this time? I'm working from home, but I'm out of the loop. I'm not aware of what's going on, the changes, or anything else. This challenge involves not just the employee, but also the company's administrative staff, or, in other words, the manager. There are also some additional challenges for the manager. If the manager believes that meetings with the staff to discuss the company's situation, community affairs, or other matters aren't necessary, it's important to recognize that when people are working remotely, more frequent engagement from the manager becomes crucial. And not just because of control mechanisms. It's essential for the manager to be involved and equally supportive of maintaining a positive atmosphere. Let's start with the basics. How is working from home going? What challenges are people encountering? What factors are hindering progress, and what is helping? At this point, it's helpful to assess the company's current situation. How is the company performing? What challenges is it facing? How are commercial or other results progressing? What are the KPIs? Who is performing well, and who is falling behind? It could be helpful to compile best practices and share them periodically. This means that the manager's involvement in this area is, at the very least, needed more frequently. Another key aspect for a manager is having regular one-on-one conversations, where they can review progress and provide feedback. And, in turn, address motivational factors for employees. This involves understanding a person's motivation, recognizing when it starts to fade, and knowing how to encourage and boost it. Well, no matter how we approach it, as I mentioned earlier, it's definitely worth sticking to a hybrid working format at least at some stage. It should also be understood that employees working from home may need to come into the office on certain days or during specific hours. To meet with everyone, discuss the situation, and connect with the team, before returning to their remote work environment. The most important points or rules to consider are probably these. If we want to work from home, there need to be several key components in place. The workplace must naturally embrace and understand this, and managers, in particular, need to recognize that working from home isn't a disadvantage, it's likely a more efficient use of employees' time and energy. Employees should understand that if they want to work from home, they need to create their own productive environment, one that allows them to feel comfortable and work efficiently. The next step is to eliminate all social distractions, such as pets, household activities, and phone calls, as I mentioned earlier. And everything else, like the TV, the fridge, and so on. There should be a clear plan for the day, a structured plan for the week, and definitely some form of reward. This means that, to stay on track with your work plan, it's important to reward yourself periodically. This means I work for 2 hours and then take a 5-minute break. If I work for 4 hours, I take a longer break. If I work for 6 hours, I treat myself to a dessert break. Once my workday is done, I head off to prepare a delicious meal and spend time with some of the nicest people in my life. It's a hybrid job, no problem. Remote work isn't an issue either. We just need to adapt to this environment, and maybe we'll even achieve better results as a result. Thank you to everyone who listened and watched. See you next time.